Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute workshop. My name is Brian McKay, Systems Engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's session. We're also joined by my colleague, Mr. Victor Verba, our lead systems engineer, and today he's going to show us everything you need to know about using macros in Verify. How you doing, Vic?
I am doing well, Brian. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. All right, if you're not familiar with our macro feature, it is what allows us to send a sequence of button presses remotely to physical phones. So that comes in very handy for tasks like changing background images or deleting ITL files, for example. Also, keep in mind that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours after they occur. So if you have to leave early and miss part of it, or you just want to be able to review it again at your own pace, just check the webinars page on our website for all past and upcoming sessions. First, let's start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into the live demo where Vic's going to guide us through the macro creation process. We'll pause for a quick Q&A. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of the screen. And after the Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. So for a quick overview of Verify, we are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets. Also, UCCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, and we are now happy to offer Cisco Cube CDR reports and dashboards. If you have any other questions about any of these features, or if you have any interest in evaluating our Cube offering, please contact us at support@verify.com or just reach out to your account manager for more information. All right, one more thing before we kick this off. For an additional fee, Verify offers an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's service engineer team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Verify engineer to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us. We'll be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services, or ECS. All right, let's get into the demo. I'm going to hand things off to Vic now. Please remember to type those questions into the Q&A panel, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation.
Oh, hello, everybody, and thank you guys for joining us again for another workshop. So like Brian had said, one of the things that we're going to focus on today are macros. Macros are a way of pushing out updates to hard phones based in scale, by device pool, thousands of phones at a time. Could be anything from ITIL certs, adding secondary TFTP addresses. Most recently, I worked with a customer that had about 5,000 phones, and they needed to disable the alternate SFTP or TFTP addresses. So we were able to kind of create a couple macros and save them a weekend of running from phone to phone. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. For this demonstration, I'm going to take a look a little bit at our phone control application here, and I'm going to use that more for demonstration purposes. And then we're going to go through and we're going to build a quick macro on how to delete an ITIL cert on a particular model phone here. If you are looking for some steps or some processes to, what options to press or what buttons to push, feel free to pop over to verify.com. In our case, we're going to go ahead and work on this 8851 right here. You could take a look at our website. A lot of times we have, just general button presses and steps out on our website. Obviously, we can't cover every single model of phone out there, but we've got a pretty solid database repository of certain statements that you can run and what buttons to press on certain phones. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop this guy open right here. And this is going to kind of give us a good model of phone. So I'm going to do my best to kind of squeeze all of this onto a single screen so that way you can kind of see how I'm building the macro as I'm building it. So I'm going to use this 8851 as an example, and we're going to build an ITIL reset macro. Then we're going to go ahead and build a subset that's going to show you how to run it against just this one phone. And then as we get into subset, you'll see kind of how you can run it against different parts of your organization as a whole, so you can run it on multiple phones. Now, one of the nice things about the ITIL certs is anybody knows, any call manager administrator, is once those ITILs become invalid, those phones won't register. They'll still be hitting the call manager. You're still going to see an IP address. You can actually still run an ITIL delete against a phone that is not registered because of an invalid cert. So this is a great way to be able to get those phones back online when they're not properly registering due to, in this case, an ITIL cert incompatibility or expired certificate. So now I've got my phone over here on the right-hand side. This is my 8851. I'm going to use that as an example, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll right over to our phone macros section. Once this guy loads up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a new macro. To do that, we just navigate over to Edit Macros, and you'll see we probably got quite a few in here. This is one of our demo environments, so we've got some built out already, some of those alternate TFTP address ones that I was talking about. But for this demonstration, we're going to add we're going to create a brand new macro, so I'm just going to click the little Add button on the right-hand side. Like Brian had mentioned, macros are basically a series of button pushes. We know the models of phones, so we have a pretty good idea of what buttons are available on each individual model of phone. So in this case, we're going to do an 8851, so this is going to be our 8800 series right here. Now you'll notice in the drop down here, these are all the keypads and options available on the 8851s. So nice thing about that is you're not going to see a bunch of options here that aren't available on that phone. So let's kind of walk through it. So let me go ahead and actually, we'll close that out. We'll go back to that guy. So here's my 8851. We want to delete the ITIL cert. First thing we need to do is we need to get into the application settings. That's going to be our application button right here. So what we need to do is program our macro to go to the application settings. So very easily, we just use our drop down here, and we're going to scroll down until we see application settings. And there it is. Press application button. That is going to be the beginning of my sequence. I'm going to click add, and you'll notice that we now are going into the application settings. We can give a brief description so you can kind of see that, and I'll say navigate to phone menu. All right, so now we've accomplished step number one. So I'm just going to pop back over, and let me see if I can get both of these guys on one screen without having to go back and forth here. There we go. So now we are in our application settings. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we need to get into our administrative settings, because that's where we're going to be able to find our security settings and our reset. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit number 7 on my keypad here, and you'll see that's going to take us right into the menu here for reset settings. So next thing we need to do is we need to hit number 7. So we're not going to hit the 7th line appearance. That would be your line appearances. We're not going to hit the soft keys because these are your soft keys. We're going to actually hit the digit number 7 and take us right into our settings. And automatically, we're going to add that directly after our menu there. So we're going to give this guy a name here, and I'll just say navigate to admin settings. If I could spell, there we go. All right, so now what we're doing is our macro is going to take us into this next screen where we are in our admin settings. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to go into reset, because we want to reset our security settings. So I'm going to hit number 5 on my screen here, and you're going to see that's going to go ahead and update and take us right into our next reset settings options. So all we're doing here is we're navigating our macro, and it's going to go ahead and take us into number 5 on the keypad, and that's going to take us to our reset settings. So we'll say reset settings menu. All right, so now we're just cruising along here. So we know the next thing that we're going to need to do is, now that we're in our reset settings meeting, our reset settings menu here, we need to reset our security settings. So I'm going to go into number 5 here, and that's going to take me into the security settings. So from there, I can see that my 3rd soft key is going to go ahead and reset this phone. But let's program our macro. We're going to do number 5 again, because that gets us into our reset security settings. And I'm just giving a brief description here, and we'll call that settings. All right, so now we are basically following our macro is following what we're doing on the screen. And again, I'm using the remote phone control tool as an example here. These same steps and these same keystrokes that I'm creating here on the left-hand side could be found on our knowledge base. They could also be found on Cisco's knowledge base as well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, and I'm not going to do it right now because I'm going to go ahead and run this macro in a second, is I'm going to cancel out of here, but we know we're going to have to hit our 3rd soft key to actually do the reset. So our next option is going to be to hit our 3rd soft key. And we're going to put that right after our 5 digit. So there we go, and reset setting. All right, so now we've hit our third soft key, and then the next thing we're going to do after the phone resets, it's always probably a good option to go ahead and go back to the home screen. So you'll see once this exits or once the reset's done after the third soft key, we're going to go ahead and hit our first soft key, and that's going to be the exit button to get us back to home. So we're going to go ahead and just program that guy in there. All right, that's going to take us back to our home screen. Back to home. All right, so now we have our general macro created. First thing it's going to do is going to take us into our application settings. Then it's going to take us to our admin settings, our reset menu. This is going to take us into our reset security settings. This is going to actually do the reset. Once the reset's done, we're going to go ahead and hit soft key number 1 to take us back to our home screen. Now, a great rule of thumb that you're going to want to do when you're running any macro, whether it be something about changing background images, deleting TFTP addresses, turning options on, turning options off, is to add a pause between each one of these settings. Now, each phone kind of reacts a little bit different. Newer model phones are usually pretty quick and responsive, as we saw on the right-hand side. Some of the older model phones, it takes a little while for the menu screens to render, especially if you're doing things like background images or something like that. If you've got a ton of background images on your phone, you notice it'll take a little while to render all of those images. So you're going to want to put pauses in between each one of these steps. Now, I could have done that as I was building these out, but I don't know. I kind of like to just build out all of my settings, know my keys that are taking me to the options, and then go back and add the pauses. So pauses are pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do here is just choose my options, and I'm just going to add a quick 5-second pause between each one of these menu options. What that's doing is it's allowing the phone the option to render the next screen before it goes ahead and hits the option. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this. I'm going to go, after I press the applications button, I'm going to add a pause. We'll say 5-second pause. I'm just going to copy that out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down to my next one and add another 5-second pause. And you'll see this is, again, why I like to just kind of add this after I've kind of built the macro, because that way I'm not kind of scrolling back and forth in here. I'm really just kind of adding it to the next sequence of events. So after I press digit 5, I'm going to add a 5-second pause. Same thing here. I did digit number 5 again, add another pause. And then last but not least, we'll go ahead and after the third key, I'm going to add another pause. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw a pause in here after I go back to the main menu screen. One of the reasons that I like to do that is because as we run this macro, we have the option to take a screenshot before and after the phone. And if I took a screenshot after I hit the first soft key, it's going to really kind of capture the menu button. But by putting that pause in there, it's going to give the macro and the phone an option to get back to the home screen before it goes ahead and snaps that screenshot there. So I'm just going to add a pause after that guy, and we'll say 5-second pause. All right, so that's it. In just a matter of a couple minutes, we use the phone control to just kind of go through the menu options and get us back to our screens to validate that we're hitting the right steps. And what we're going to do here, and I'm going to do my best to go ahead and kind of show all of this on one screen here. I'm going to copy the phone name out of here. Give me this guy, and I'm going to bring him up on Call Manager, if he's going to let me. Come on. There we go. And let me find this phone in Call Manager. Now, this is a registered phone here, but you could do this against a phone that's not registering because of ITIL. What I'm going to do my best to is, as this macro is running, to kind of refresh all these screens at once so we can kind of see what it's doing. But there we've got our phone control. Here we've got our macro. So we're going to go ahead and give this guy a quick name. I'll just call it Workshop 8851 ITIL delete. So we've just basically named our macro. We've got our pauses in there. We've got all our applications in there and our settings. We're going to give that guy a save. So now we've got this macro. A couple different things we do. Now that we've got the macro, you can actually run a macro directly against the phone. If this phone is here, it's registered, I can control it. I can run the macro that way. But for this demonstration, we're going to go ahead and go the long way. I'm going to go ahead and create a subset. what a subset is going to give you the ability to choose it and then run a macro against a singular phone. Because if a phone's not registered, you can't remotely control it, but you can still run a macro against it. But we have to create that subset that says, hey, just run the macro against that phone. So that's what we're going to go do now. So you can see in here, I've got my workshop macro. What we're going to do is create that subset so that way I can run it against just this one phone. So for that, I just go ahead. I'm still working out of the macro screen. I just went to edit subset. I'll let this guy render here. Like I said, we probably have a lot of subsets in here. Oh, that took me back to macros. Give me 1 second. Let me get to macros and then edit subset here. I went to edit macros. I needed to go to edit subset. And subsets, if you're familiar with our reporting, they're basically ways to identify where we want this macro to run. So from the subsets menu, you can see we've got quite a few subsets in here. I'm just going to go ahead and add a new one. And this is going to bring me to a subset menu where I can define different criteria. So I can say, hey, I want this macro to run against all my 8851s. And in that case, it's going to go ahead and run this macro against every 8851. These are cumulative, so these are match all. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and run this against just one particular phone rather than choosing an entire device pool, locations, models of phones, or partitions. We're just going to run it against a specific device name. So I wonder if I still have that cached. I do. And here's the device we're going to run it against. And now you can see. So it's going to match all of this criteria and then only run it against this phone because I am specifying this phone or a directory number or a device description. All right. We'll call this workshop single phone subset. And it's always good when you're creating kind of a single phone subset to just identify that in the name or in the description. So, you know, every time you're, maybe choosing a different phone to run one of these guys against, you're always going to this subset and then really just updating the phone you're going to run it on. We're going to give that guy a save. So now a couple things that I've done. One, I've created the macro. I've created the subset so we can run against one phone. So let's go ahead and give this guy a whirl. Like I said, I'm going to try to refresh this as fast as I can, so you'll see this guy go unregistered. I'm also going to go ahead and adjust my refresh rate here to go ahead and show that macro running on the phone. So I'm back in macros. I'm going to go ahead and execute the macro. Where's my macro? Easy enough. Workshop. There's the macro I'm going to go ahead and run. Now, remember we created that subset that was just one single phone. So if I scroll through here, you're going to see I've got my subset in there, or I can just type in workshop and it'll go ahead and bring that guy up to the top. And we scoot him over. So now what we're doing is we're executing this macro against this subset. That subset has just our one phone in it. If you're running this against multiple phones, maybe an entire device pool, maybe entire models of phones, maybe you've got 100 or thousands of phones, you can set how many phones it's going to run against concurrently. You can go up to 100, and that's basically how many phones it's going to go ahead and run against at the same exact time. All right. So important option that we have here is this guy. So we talked a little bit about ITIL deletes, when phones won't register. So if a phone won't register, we can't communicate via HTTP or HTTPS because the phone's not registered within your call manager. However, we can still communicate with it via CTI. So by selecting this guy, it's going to go ahead and identify the primary CTI manager. Primary CTI manager is identified in your call manager configuration. So if you checkmark this or you do not have a CTI manager set up, you're not going to have this option. Just to kind of give you a quick example here, let me go ahead and navigate over to CUCM, show you where that setting is. I'm working out of my Colorado cluster. And if I edit this guy down and I scroll down a little bit here, you're going to see my remote phone control, and there's my CTI manager. So that is where the CTI service is running on this particular call manager. All right, let's get back to where we were here. Thinking. All right, let's reselect our macro here. Let's reselect our subset. And we're going to run this, even though this phone is registered, we're still going to run this via CTI. We could skip phones that are on active calls. Probably a good idea if you're resetting a bunch of ITIL certs or anything like that, because keep in mind, if this phone is registered, these changes are going to be taking place on the end user's phone as well. And we're also going to select this guy. We're going to capture those screenshots. Keep in mind, if the phone's not registered, you're not going to see screenshots for it. In this case, it is, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn those on. Now, another option that we have down here is to create a separate subset for just failed phones. And you may want to put a date in there or something like that. But what this is going to do is if we happen to go out to several phones, maybe you're changing background images, maybe you're deleting alternate TFTP addresses. If for some reason we can't get to that phone at all, this is going to create a subset of those phones and the MAC addresses of those phones, so you can always come back and try to rerun it if something went wrong. So nice thing about that is it's going to give you a nice list of where it may not have successfully run. And then, of course, you could always choose to email the results off to whoever you want to email those to. All right, so let's go ahead and let me do this real fast. I'm going to change my screen to refresh every 5 seconds here so we can kind of do our best to see that guy constantly refreshing and going through its motions. And let's execute this macro. This is going to take us to the macro running screen here once it refreshes. And right now that macro is running, so I'm going to do my best to try to get all of this on one page here. You can see we're getting into our admin settings, and let's see if I can refresh. This is my call manager here. We'll hopefully, if we catch it at the right time, we're going to see this guy go unregistered real quickly here. See it going through. Now it's getting ready to reset. There we go. So now we're unregistered because it just reset the ITIL certificates. And hopefully, in a second, we're going to see that guy registered. Phone came back up. And we are back at our splash screen. And this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looked like after. So essentially, we basically ran a macro, updated the ITIL certs on these phones, captured some screenshots, the before and after. We know that was successful. We can see that it was successful right here. We also were, kind of monitoring our call manager to show that phone unregister. Now, other things that you can do. Now that we have this macro, hey, this is a great macro to have. If I have multiple clusters, this may be something I want to transfer across multiple clusters. So macros are also importable and exportable. So I could take this macro, I could build a macro pack where maybe I want to keep this off to the side so I can potentially reuse those at a later time. And if we workshop our macro here, you can see that I've got a little download arrow. So I can go ahead and export this macro right here. It's going to export a JSON. If I have a bunch of macros that maybe I want to transport to a different location, maybe I have a different cluster, I can go ahead and select multiple macros and export all of those guys as well. And then all you have to do to import them is just hit the little import button, choose your file. If you're doing multiple macros, you have the option to import an entire zip file, or you could just do a single one right here. Choose your file, go to your downloads, and you'll see your macro in there. So with all that said, I hope I was able to shed a little bit of light on how to go ahead and create a macro. Again, we did a great ITIL reset here. This is probably the number one day-to-day usage that people use our macros for, is resetting those ITIL certs. But man, do they come in handy when you got to delete something in 5,000 phones. It really saves a lot of time from having to run around with 10 or 15 people through a bunch of different offices trying to update TFTP addresses or delete alternate TFTP addresses and things like that. So with all that said, Brian, do we have any questions or anything out there?
We do, and I just want to say excellent presentation, very informative as always, and I have had to do that run around the building all weekend in a past life. I really wish I'd had Verify back then. Just a reminder, if you do have a question, please type it now in the Q&A panel at the lower right hand of your screen. We do have one question from Raphael. He says, can Verify control a phone over HTTPS instead of HTTP?
Yes. We will actually try HTTPS first, I believe, and then if HTTPS does not work, we punt over to HTTP. So the answer is yes. We actually try both of those for the most part simultaneously.
Okay, excellent. All right, I don't think, oh, we've got one other question popping up. Hold on just a second. Let's see. Hold on, I saw it pop up and then I lost it. Something about over MRA. I think it said. Yeah, sorry, I don't see it popped up in the lower corner and then it disappeared and it's not in the Q&A panel. Interesting. I don't know where it went. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so also it's asking, so is this a separate module that is required to be purchased? Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Phone macros and phone control are each unique modules. Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't think. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, it was in the other chat window. That's why I wasn't seeing it. Okay, yeah. Keisha asks, how about over MRA as far as using phone control? I'm not, or phone macro.
For running a macro?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we're talking about through an expressway. I do not think at this point in time we're going to be able to communicate with those phones through the expressway. So from a macro or a phone control perspective, that may be a little bit more difficult because that expressway is remote and it's going to have its own unique information. So I want to say the answer is that, but we'll make sure we take down your information and I can confirm that for you guys.
Okay, sounds good. I don't see any other questions popping up, so I guess we can start wrapping up here. Let me go ahead and take control back from you.
There you go. We should have it. All right.
And now we're getting to the portion where we announce the lucky Amazon gift card winner. So I'm going to reveal that right now. And the winner is, congratulations, Richard Kavarik. You've won the weekly Amazon $50 gift card. Your account manager should be reaching out to you sometime today with that information. Again, thanks for attending and congratulations. So I think that just about does it. One more quick mention though. If you haven't had a chance to check out our new social platform, Planet Verify, then we would suggest you head on over and check it out. It's at planet.verify.com or just verify.com/planet. So come to check out our community activity. It's a good source of knowledge on a variety of Verify topics and a good way to connect with Verify staff and fellow customers alike. We actually get a lot of great suggestions from customers, just in the forums on how to use our product that maybe we hadn't even thought of before. So definitely a good place to enhance your knowledge. And it's not all work. We have some fun stuff in there too. So if you need a good cocktail recipe or if you want to talk about Star Wars, drop by our Cantina forum, for example. No Obi-Wan spoilers, please. I'm only on episode 3. So with that, thanks again to everybody who attended today. Just a reminder that we'll be taking a break for next week's webinar due to the July 4th holiday. So our following session will be on July 13th. The topic will be user and group account provisioning. So we'll be covering all the aspects of setting up user and group permissions in our application, including Active Directory linked accounts. That workshop will be presented by our colleagues Jim and Dre, so be sure to tune in. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us as always, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks all.